Okay, so let's get started here. I'm going to start off with number 1, very simple, and then we're going to jump to number 5. Okay, this should be review from Im3, and this is stuff we talked about earlier last week. So let's get into it. So number 1, we're going to multiply. So this is going to multiply with this. And it's very simple. We're going to distribute the first guy. The first term in the first parentheses gets multiplied here. So 3 times 3 is 9. And then x times x is x to the second power. Remember, we add the exponents when we're multiplying. So x1, that's really x1 times x1 is x2. Okay? Then we go 3x times 4. So 3 times 4, and it's positive 4, so that's positive 12. And I only have one x. So it's just going to have an x at the back. We are done distributing the first guy. Let's distribute the second guy. Negative 4 times 3x, that's negative 12. And then the x is nothing multiplies with the x, so we just bring it along. And negative 4 times 4, that gives me negative 16. Okay? So we distributed, if you recall, the first step is to distribute. Next step is CLT, combine like terms. So 9x squared, there's no other x squared, so it's just 9x squared. And remember, I like to cross it out once we use it. Then we have an x, I combine with this x, positive 12 and negative 12 is 0, so they eliminate or cancel each other out. I don't have to write anything down there. And now I'm going to bring down my constant. There's nothing to combine with that, so it's negative 16. Okay, and then last thing, we got to check a standard form. The order is the highest powered first, and then is the constant last. And the answer is yes. So we just got done multiplying. Okay, so the other ones are very similar to that, 2, 3, and 4. Okay, on number 5, I want to do that because if you notice, it has 2 different types of variables. It has a f and a g. I want to show you how to handle that. Okay. Number 3 is the same way as well. It does have an x and a y. So we'll do f and g. This one's a little more difficult. It has more multiplication to do. So we're going to treat this the same way. Multiply. Take the first guy, and he's going to multiply with the first guy here. So the numbers first. We have 3. The number in front of this f is actually the skinny friend of 1. Okay, so 3 times 1 is 3. And then we go f times f squared. So how many total f's do we have? We have 3 of them. So f to the third. All right, 3f times the second term over here. 3 times 2, that gives me positive 6. And now we're going to go f times f. So 1f or f1 times f1, that's f2. And then this guy doesn't have a g, but he does, so the g just comes along for the ride. Okay? So we are done with the second term. Now let's go ahead and do the third term. All right, 3 times, and here we have negative 1. So 3 times negative 1 is negative 3. 3 times negative 1, negative 3. And then we have f. There's no f to multiply over here, so we just bring the f in. And then we have a g squared. There's nothing multiplying with the g squared, so it just comes in here. Okay, so we're done with the first term. All right, we're going to do the second term now. So let me erase this so I can have a little more room. So negative 2g times 1f squared. So negative 2 times 1 is negative 2. G times no g, that's just going to give us g. But here's the thing. if you notice the order, I like to keep it in ABC order with if we have multiple variables. So I'm going to put the F guy first. So G and F, there's nothing multiplying there. We just write them down. So it's going to be F squared first because it's alphabetical order. And then the G comes in. Okay? And if you keep it alphabetical order all the time, you won't have an issue later, as I will point out. Now we're going to do negative 2g times the second term here. Negative 2 times positive 2. That's negative 4. And then we got g times f and g. So the g's multiply together, and that's going to give me g to the second. But we want to put the f first. There's nothing multiplying with the f, so the f just comes along with the right, and we have g to the second. All right, and then last, negative 2g times negative 1g squared. So negative 2 times negative 1 is positive 2. Okay, and then g times g squared. How many total g's do we have? We have 3 total g's. No f's. Okay, so we are done distributing. Now we're going to combine like terms. CLT. So, first term, and this is where we got to be careful, and this is why we put in alphabetical order with our multiple variables. We have f to the third. Is there any other just f to the thirds? And the answer is no, so it's just going to be 3 f to the third. Cross them out because you're using him already. Move on to the next term. We have f2g. So I'm looking for f squared and g. And we have it here. F squared and g. So this guy is combining with this guy. Okay? So just like we've done before, positive 6, negative 2, that gives me positive 4. And we keep the variables the same when we're combining like terms. So it's F2G. Cross them out. All right. So now we move on to the next term. So we're looking for F1G2. So F1G2, we have it here. F1G2. So this is why you put it in alphabetical order. It's a lot easier to see which ones match. So we have negative 3 and negative 4. They're on the same team. So they're going to combine to make a bigger number. That's going to be negative 7 FG2. Okay, cross them out because we're done with them. And then our last thing is G to the third. If you notice, since we've been crossing out, there's nothing we know can combine with this. They're all used up. So we're going to put this at the end. Okay. And this is our final answer. And actually, this is in standard form. Okay. As long as the highest power comes first. It could be either one to come first. The other powers kind of just mesh in the middle. Because they're powers of 2, these are powers of 3. This is how we write it, especially when we have two different variables. You want the highest power variable first, and then you want the highest power of the other variable last, which is kind of weird, but that's how the proper way to write it. The mixed variables go in the middle. Okay? So I wanted to point that out when we have multiple variables, how that looks. So that would be your final answer. Number 6, I'm not going to do, but I want to set it up. Just remember, when you have a power of 2 here, you're not distributing the 2. What you're doing is turning this into multiplication. It's really x minus 4y, and you're doing that twice, and then distributing. Okay? I'm pointing that out because there's a lot of people that make that mistake, and what they do is take this 2 and throw it in. All right? Okay, so that's multiplication. I'll let you do the rest there, but let's move on to the next, I guess, section, if you want to call it that. All right. So here's 7 through 12, and here is factoring. Okay. So as of today, you should have these methods kind of mastered already because they're from Im3. So you should have GCF, greatest common factor. That's dividing something out from everything. The other method is the X method. And then the snowflake method. Okay? Guys, here's the thing I always tell my students. These methods are easy if you know that you're using them. For example, if I said, hey guys, you're using the X method for number 7. That's really easy because everybody knows how to use the X method. Okay? Or if I say, hey, number 8, you're using snowflake. And you're like, oh, I know how to use snowflake. Let's do it. Okay? Here's where the problem lies with students in Im3. Is choosing the correct methods to do the problem. All right? So half the battle is understanding in number 7, which one of these will work. Okay? Because if you notice, it just says factor. And you have 3 weapons to use here. You can use more than one. But we have to choose which one is appropriate for number 7. Which one will be appropriate for number 11. Which one is appropriate for number 10. Okay? And it's your job to figure this out. All right? So I'm going to explain it verbally, even though I talked about it in previous Zooms and previous notes. Greatest common factor is when you can divide something out of every term. Okay? Something other than 1. It could be a variable. It could be a number. All right? That's how you use GCF. That's when you use GCF. X method is when you have a quadrilateral or a quadratic, something with an even power. Okay? An even power at the beginning, and you have an A value, a B value, and a C value. So this is X method, even power, and your starting is a 1 in front or nothing in front of your highest power. Okay, so this is called a coefficient of 1. The snowflake method is exactly the same criteria. The only difference is we have an A, B, and a C, but our A value is something that's not 1. If you notice, 8 is 4 and number 9 is 2. This is something that is not 1. That's when we use the snowflake method. Okay? So let's go through some of these. We're going to factor. Remember, factoring means turn into a multiplication problem. So let's look at this. First thing I always want to check is GCF. Okay? If you notice, the only thing that could divide out of these is 1. Okay? So GCF is not going to work. They don't have the same variable, so no GCF. But now I got to choose one of these options. Which one best fits for number 7? So since I have an even power and a 1 in front, that is snowflake. I have A, B, and C. Snowflake method, X method right off the bat. X or diamond. I don't know what your other teachers called it, but I just call it the X method. So we're going to do the X method here. Okay? Which means A times C on top, B on bottom. All right? And then we go A times C, so my A value, B value, C value. Your A value is the number in front of the X squared, so my A value is 1. Your B value is the number in front of the X, which is -3, and your C value is the constant, the number by itself, okay, with no variable. So A times C is -54. Okay, my B value is -3. All right, so we have to figure out what multiplies to -54 that adds up to -3. Okay, and you have to be pretty good with multiplication here. You can use your calculator, all that good stuff, but it's going to be -9 and +6. Okay, I call these my magic pair. -9 times 6 is -54. Negative 9 plus 6 is negative 3. All right? Once you have your magic pair and you're doing X method, it's simple. Split your variable here, so it's x to the power of 2. It splits into 2. So an x goes here, and an x goes here, and then we put our magic pair. We have negative 9, positive 6. Done factoring. We turned it into a multiplication problem. So this polynomial is now in factored form. Okay, let's jump over to number 9. All right, so number 9, there is no GCF because I cannot divide anything out of 2, 7, and 49, and they do not have an R in common. So I'm going to go ahead and either use X or Snowflake. I have to decide, and the reason I'm using Snowflake is because I have something other than 1 in front. I have a number 2 in front here. So my A value is not 1, it's 2. So when that happens, Snowflake. A times C goes here. So 2 times negative 49 is negative 98. Okay, and B value goes here. Okay, I also have to fill in the top portion of the snowflake, and that's going to be the 2, our A value, with the variable split. So it's 1R and 2 with 1R. Because it was R squared, we split it apart. Okay, now this bottom portion is kind of doing the magic pair. Well, multiplies the negative 98, but adds up to negative 7. Okay, so you have to be really good with multiplication here because this is a big number to multiply to. So that answer is going to be negative 14 and positive 7. Okay, if you multiply, it gives you negative 98. If you combine like terms here, that gives you negative 7. So that's my magic pair. But because we're using Snowflake, we want to reduce this. What can divide 2 and 14? And that answer is 2. I can divide by 2 here. Okay, so when I divide by 2 or reduce, this gives me 1R. This gives me negative 7 on the bottom. Okay. Same thing over here. I cannot reduce, so this stays the same. And now what do I write down in my template? I write down exactly what I have in my snowflake. So it's R minus 7 in one parenthesis. And 2R plus 7 in the other. And we are done factoring. Okay. All right, let's jump over to 11 because I get a lot of students that do this and get this wrong, okay? So if you notice when we use snowflake method or X method, we have a trinomial, 3 terms, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. This only has 2 terms. But we can turn it into this because you have to understand that this is still your A, and your C value is the guy without the variable. So who are we missing in the middle? We're missing the B value. So I'm going to rewrite it so it does have a B value, and it turns into a trinomial 3 terms. So it's x squared plus 0x, that's my B value, minus 49. So A, B, and C. Okay? So when it's missing the middle term, which is your B value will always be the guy with the single variable, no power. Okay? That is how you rewrite it. And now it turns into, in this case, the diamond or X method, because we do not have a number in front. So we have this. A times C 1 times negative 49, that's negative 49. And then we have a b value of 0. 1 multiplies to negative 49, that adds up to 0. Hopefully that's pretty easy for you. It's negative 7 and positive 7. They multiply to negative 49, add up to 0. So let's put this in our template. Split the variable for the a value. That's so it's x squared. It's going to be x and x. And our magic pair is negative 7 and positive 7. And now we have it in factor form. Okay. Let's jump over to the next one, next section. All right. Let's go ahead and let's do number 14. Actually, let's skip 14 because we kind of did problems like that. I want to do number 17, okay? Because that one looks slightly different. All right, so let's jump over to 17 because if you notice, it has 2 variables and we have to factor, okay? I want to show you how to handle that. So we write it up here. We'll do the work in this area here. Okay, so this is number 17. 16 x squared minus 25y squared. All right. So if you look, this is your a value. We're missing the b value. And in this case, our c value is the c value because it has a different variable. All right, so this is an exception to the rule. So if I wrote this, it would be 16x squared plus 0. And because I have 2 variables, I'm going to put both variables here as a single power. So 0xy is my b value minus 25y squared. Okay. So now what we want to do is understand this is my A, my B, and my C. Okay? So because of that, we're going to do snowflake method because our A value is not 1, it's actually 16. Okay, so take out your trusty calculators and we are going to go ahead and multiply 16 times negative 25. Okay, and hopefully if you do this correctly, A times C, you should get negative 400. So this is a big number. My B value is 0. Okay, and we're gonna split this guy here, so it's gonna be 16x and 16x. And now our goal is to find the magic pair. Well, I'll just do the math for you because it might take you a while. What multiplies to negative 400 that adds up to 0? So these numbers pretty much have to be the same in opposite sign. So that's going to be negative 20 and positive 20. Okay. Now that you have your magic pair, let's reduce if possible. So we can reduce this. The biggest number that could divide 16 and 20 is 4. Okay, so if I divide by 4, this gives me 4 on top, or 4x. and -5 on bottom. Okay. And then we're going to do the same thing here. We actually could divide by 4 on the right side as well. So divide by 4 and divide by 4. So if we reduce, this gives me 4x on top, and this gives me 5 on the bottom, +5. So now that we have it, we can now just put it into our set of parentheses. Okay, but here's how it changes. It's going to be 4x minus 5. But because I had a variable at my C term, I had a y, the 5 has the y. The second term has your last variable. Okay, and the same thing here. Positive 4x plus 5. So it's 4x plus 5. And because I had a y squared at the end, that means this guy has to be y. Okay, so if you look, your answer for this guy would be C. I know it's a different order. I kind of switched these, but it's the same idea. Order doesn't matter. Okay, so we will stop there. Make sure if you have any questions on this stuff, please get the factoring stuff down. Your goal is to finish the rest of the assignment today. I'm going to go ahead and give you the check-in code. And once you get the check-in code, you are dismissed. If you want to stay on for questions, you can. Okay, so let me give you that check-in code. It's SKY, S-K-Y. If you're good to go, you are dismissed. If not, stay on and I can answer those questions.